We'll make this work. It's good to see all of you. I can't think of a better place to be than on the Newburgh waterfront, which is my hometown, on a beautiful March morning with the sun shining and that spectacular view. I was just mentioning to Andy, when we're in this room, which is I think my favorite place that we meet, you really understand what the Greenway is all about. It's out there, and it's just really, really wonderful. Oh, we have to unmute for the people up here to hear us?
Yeah.
Okay.
Laptop?
We're having some technical issues. Okay.
Is it this one?
Because Andy had wanted to use this.
Sorry, it's my fault. Newbie. So it's this one.
Yes.
So I unmuted it. 2 seconds.
How that now?
Can people hear us online? Can just someone raise your hand to see? Okay, great, wonderful. Okay, so let's start again. Just welcome everyone to this March meeting. It's wonderful to see all of you here. As I mentioned, this is my hometown, so it's always really special for me to be in Newburgh and to see all of you. So thank you for being here. Let's actually have our introductions before we get into the business of the meeting. Again, I'm Kevin Burke. I'm chair of the Greenway Conservancy, and let's go around the room just to announce ourselves for the record. Andy, do you want to start? We'll go around that way.
Sure. Andy Kitzman with the Hudson River Valley Greenway.
Meg Downey, Chair of the Hudson River Valley Greenway Community Council. Jane Blackman, Treasurer of the Conservancy.
Sarah Olson, Secretary of the Conservancy.
Beth Campociaro, Greenway staff member, taking minutes. Hi, I'm Jennifer Carlquist, the Executive Director of Boscoville House and Gardens and Putnam County Representative.
Good morning, Molly Winter, Assistant Commissioner at New York State's Agriculture and Markets, here on behalf of Commissioner Wall.
Susan Landfried, New York State Secretary of State Walter Mosley's designee.
I'm Ryan Feeney on behalf of Assemblyman Chris Ekus of the 99th District.
Lisa Weiss, representing Commissioner Dominguez at New York State Department of Transportation.
Diane Dintroff, ESOPUS LWRP Committee.
Good morning, Kelly Ellenwood from the Bannerman Castle Trust.
Michael O'Brien from the Hopewell Depot Museum. Walt Daniels, New York, New Jersey Trail Conference.
Good morning, Elizabeth Tavares, representing Senator Michelle Hinchy.
Cindy Lanzetta with the Conservancy.
Angela Henry, Duchess Rep for the Council.
Linda Vonderheide, Russell County Rep for the Council.
Jane Daniels, Governor appointee to the Conservancy.
Great. How about over here? Oh, wonderful to see you. And how about in the back, our staff there?
Dan Jeanson, Greenway staff.
Shannon Day, Greenway staff.
Okay, now we've got to say hello to our friends on Zoom. So let's have a roll call there.
Sorry.
I'm just going to go in the order that I'm seeing the name. So let's see. Betsy Jacks, good morning. Oh, you're muted, Betsy, sorry. Okay, we're not hearing the people on Zoom. Okay, so because we can't hear the people on Zoom, maybe I can speed things up by just mentioning and doing a roll call, and you can either wave or not. But it's Betsy Jacks. We've got Cody Arana from our staff. Tom Wearmouth from Marist. Hello, Tom. Ginny Williams. Hello. Mary McNamara. Maura O'Shea. Thomas Cole. Pamela Jane Brown. Matthew Schneider, it looks like, or Schneid. Cornell Smith. Hello. Sean Hammond, Skip Piscatelli, Carrie Deneen, Ptolemy Planning, Mark McGlynn, Linda Cooper, State Parks. I think that's everyone. Good morning, everyone. Welcome. Before we do the pledge, I wanted to offer a chance for our host this morning to say a quick hello, an introduction. This is Lakia Moody, who's the director of the Newburgh campus of SUNY Orange.
Thank you. On behalf of SUNY Orange, I wanted to welcome you to our beautiful Newburgh campus. If you have a time at all today, I do encourage you, although it's a little brisk outside, to take a moment to step outside, to just kind of take in the views and certainly the fresh air. Dr. Young was unable to join us today as she is in Middletown preparing for our own board meeting tonight. I wanted to reaffirm our college's commitment to the future of this region as well as the work that is being done now. We are actually celebrating our 75th anniversary right now, and so we are very excited to share that with you. A milestone that reflects our longstanding commitment to education, workforce development, and community engagement here in the region. I get nervous in front of a microphone. It's weird, without the microphone, I'm fine. This is an exciting time for us, and I just wanted to share that we are continuing to try to respond to the needs of the region in the way that we are training and educating our region's residents for the jobs of tomorrow and the opportunities of tomorrow. Lastly, I wanted to express our deep appreciation for the work of the Hudson River Valley Greenway. We sincerely appreciate your efforts in preserving and enhancing this incredible region, and we respect and value the impact of your work. Thank you so much for giving me time to say a few words, and I hope you have a great meeting.
I actually remember watching this building coming alive and being built many years ago, and it's great to see it all just bearing so much fruit. So thank you, Lakia. Okay, well, you've got our flag here, so why don't we all rise and say the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. And with that, I'm happy to call this board meeting to order on behalf of Meg and myself, and to again welcome all of you here. We have a really special treat this morning. I was thinking that, as I was preparing for the meeting that, growing up in Hudson Valley, we are treated to so many folk heroes and folk legends, Johnny Appleseed and Pete Seeger. And in getting to know our speaker today, Jane Daniels, I think one day there should be a folk tale around her because she really is a trail legend. I think there's nobody I know who has walked more of the valley than Jane. And she's been a longtime board member. She's done so much for the Greenway. And one of my fondest memories is an outing maybe about 5 or 6 years ago when we were preparing the way for the Empire State Trail. And Barney McHenry and I took the train up and met Jane and Scott, Scott Keller in Hudson, and drove around that trail. And I think it's a day we will always remember. So when I saw Jane on the agenda today, I was just so excited, and to hear her just treat us to how she sees our trails and to inspire us to use them and to get out there on foot and enjoy them ourselves. So without further ado, Jane Daniels.
Thank you, Kevin, for that warm welcome, but I also want to call out that it was my husband's idea that we walk it, okay? The trail has been designed for both cyclists and walkers, and it's the long-distance cyclers that end up getting all the accolades. There's all kinds of comments about them. New York Times has done articles. But when you're walking, you really see stuff. So, I will start. Okay, it's supposed to advance. Let's try another button. Nope. All the technical glitches decided to nope, didn't do that.
It was just working?
Yes, it did earlier.
There we go.
Okay, great, thanks.
Okay.
All right, we'll advance. Okay, My husband and I live in Yorktown Heights, which is at the upper part of Westchester County, and I draw here, there's this picture of where we live, and that's where we walk. It says South County Trailway. Google Maps is wrong. It's actually North County Trailway, and we can walk that anytime we want. We're about 10 minutes away from most of the areas. 15 gets us more selections of what we want to walk. So, showing what we have near our house, this is the bridge over the Croton Reservoir. That was not on our walk. That was earlier this season. This is more typical of what we would see if we would walk in the fall. That's near where we are. The South County Trailway we're very familiar with. This lake, unfortunately, has been drained. This was taken just before we started our walk. Because the Empire State Trailway has established trailheads, it's nice, but they're so far apart for a walker, they find places wherever and however they can find them. So this is up just near Mayapack, and it's actually one of 3 roadside parking spots that people take advantage of. But there are public access places. This is in Yorktown, and it's just down from a road. This one is just outside of New Paltz. It's on it's the Empire State Trail and they all have the sections all have different names. And as far as I'm concerned, they're the EST. Private access. The most extensive one that we saw was on the Hudson Albany Electric, and this is one in Yorktown. They don't want you on their property, but boy, they're very glad to be able to have access to the trail, however primitive it happens to be. My talk is set up geographically. It is not in the order in which we walked. Okay. My older daughter, her husband, suggested that we go down to the Bronx and walk that section. And you can see there's a huge contrast between the houses that we passed and then this bridge over this point in Dival. Manhattan proved to be far more interesting than we thought it would be. We saw this red-tailed hawk real close to the George Washington Bridge. And as we were going towards lower down in Manhattan, there were all these lovely little features along the trail. It was never a dull moment when we were in New York City. And the signs that were down there, this is only a few. Obviously, they want the trail fixed, but I really like the one that's over here on the left. New York it doesn't have enough closets, but that doesn't keep our children from coming out of them. I thought that really sums up New York City in a delightful way. In Putnam County, we saw a variety of things. This is just north of where we live. Remnants of quarrying, wildlife, and there was also, you pass by a lot of light industry. I didn't include those pictures. So on the Maybrook Trailway, there are turtle crossings that on this line that allowed the turtles to go from one wetland to the other. I never saw a turtle cross, but a friend of mine did see one crossing and making use of it. So they are used, and they were rather frequent. Remnants of the Maybrook line when it ran, that was discontinued, and Metro North owns that section. Dutchess County is through a lot of suburbia. We saw probably more walkers there than we saw cyclists because we often were there during the week since Walt and I are both retired. I love the way the Dutchess County Trailway has a driveway crossing sign on the trailway. Walkway over the Hudson. The view from it is magnificent. I don't know how many people have gone. I walked across it. It's well worth it. I don't recommend you doing it during the summer. I took each of our grandchildren at one point across during 90-plus degrees, full sun. It was really a struggle. This is the Rosendale Trestle, the view from it, in the Wallkill Valley Rail Trail. Kitty Brown was instrumental in getting that whole rail trail done, especially the reconstruction of the bridge. What's neat about just north of the bridge is there's a lot about the American Natural Cement Company. This is only one of the few pictures of the remains of the industry, some of which is in disrepair. Others, like this, are in good condition, and there's lots of interpretive signs there. When we walked into Kingston, we were pleasantly surprised. I loved the sign here about the dog and decided to include it, and this was one of many, on the right, this was one of many art projects that was available for walkers. When I was looking through pictures, I'd completely forgotten that we'd seen a double rainbow at the Kingston waterfront. So these are the kind of things that when you're walking, you're going slower than on when you're cycling, and you get to see and enjoy them more. This is the view of the Rhinecliff-Kingston Bridge. And by the way, one side of the river says Rhinecliff-Kingston, the other says Kingston-Rhinecliff. The view from the top of that is fantastic. It's noisy walking across, but you do, crossing the river or any body of water on a bridge, you really see some spectacular scenery. The road walk to Endale. And it's unfortunate you have a lot of stone walls, entrances to estates. My husband didn't mind it as much as I did. It was a beautiful fall day. It just seemed like it went on forever. But once we got to approaching Tivoli, this was a view of the Catskills that we got. And as we're walking into Tivoli, there were election signs. This was in '23. And by the way, he did win the election, and he's been since reelected. He obviously wanted to have walking trails, and this had to do with horses. There was one that had a goat on it, another had a cow. So he had many things he wanted people to realize that were important to him. Once we were at Bard, there was lots of art along the way, which I thoroughly enjoy, and I think it's a real asset to the trail. And kudos to Andy Beers on the route that he picked out. So when we're walking near Germantown, there's a lot of apple orchards, and so I decided to take a picture of some of the containers. What I didn't realize is I had a nice picture of the Catskills as we passed. I didn't realize that until afterwards. Okay. On this picture on the right sort of reminded me of Andy Wyatt's pictures up in Maine. It was kind of a forlorn, small cottage that has been left behind. And along the route into Germantown, there were lots of small things to take notice of, in particular this pump, and I have no idea if it worked or not. This is along Kinderhook Creek. On the road up to Hudson, I particularly liked this. So by the way, I only use a cell phone for my photos. And this was an artist, sculptor, and his outdoor sculpture as I passed his house. Hudson was really neat. You saw houses that had been restored, and there were some areas that weren't as nice. But the big draw in Hudson, there is a cheese shop that is right straight out of New York City. Their sandwiches are to die for. And in fact, Walt and I made sure we stopped a total of 3 times there to have lunch. Talbot and Arding is the name of it, and it's right on the EST. A view over the Catskills. Obviously there was a rainstorm somewhere over the Hudson, and we were just north of Hudson at this point. It was a park. This is a trestle. The bridge was taken down on the Albany Hudson Electric. And so this was our first main road walk. This we did before we did the walk to up into Bard. And I must say that The road walks ended up being much nicer than I thought because you're going along at a slow rate and you really do see interesting things. Like this cow. We saw a lot of wildlife, domestic quote, wildlife along the trail. Horses, we saw some baby alpacas, goats. Okay, now you're probably wondering why I'm showing this. These are retaining walls that were all along the way. They're not solid. This is what they're filled with. They're filled with gravel, which kind of surprised me because I always thought that, hey, they've had to lift all these heavy things in, so they're built up from the bottom, filled with gravel, and the next layer is put on. It's just another example of what you see when you're walking. When we were leaving Neverville, we kept hearing a train whistle. What's going on? Is it over by the Hudson? We're not that close to it. And sure enough, there was a CSX train that went over the road. That's where we walked about the time that we were there, which was kind of a neat thing to see. And the train goes over towards Chatham, right through the town. Okay, this is approaching, it's the last stretch going on the road. The advantage of walking when you're along the road is that most often you are on a sidewalk, and the cyclists have to be on a fairly busy street. Okay, up in Albany they have a sign, and it says that you can see the amount down to New York City. It's wrong. Okay, it's about 200 miles from there. At this particular parking lot, a very entrepreneurial individual, he had a trailer and his car that were filled with supplies for cyclists or for people who were walking that needed a snack, they needed to fix their gear of one sort or another. So, this is our daughter with Walt, and I took this down in the Bronx. Karen made the comment that she had the best hiking lunch she's ever had when we had lunch at a Dominican restaurant in the Bronx. So I'm extending an invitation to people. I certainly don't expect people to walk the whole thing. I'd be very surprised. But my husband and I are very happy to take anybody who wants to out on some section that's near there. I can point out some really interesting things to see. I can keep it to the length that you want. Typically, ours were around 3 miles. Recently, we're more likely to be in the 2 mile. And there's some places like the bridge over the Croton Reservoir, it's a half mile from a parking area. So I'm opening this now for any questions that people have, including those who happen to be on Zoom. So any questions? Okay. For hiking, there's a lot of variety. It depends upon what you're willing to do. The weather obviously has something to do with it. Start small, be successful, and then gradually increase. When we never walked more than 5 miles. We're not able to, and towards the end it was 3. So what you do is you have to plan ahead on what you can do. We used car shuttle, so we only had to walk it once. We didn't walk back and forth, whereas when we walk at home, we end up just going down and back, and we know, okay, it's 3/4 of a mile to this piece, and turn around and come back, we've walked 1.5 miles. Okay. There are other places in the region that are absolutely fantastic to hike. The Hudson Highlands I highly recommend. The New York-New Jersey Trail Conference publishes maps that are really good. I will say that the website for the EST offers a lot of information, but you do need to look at Google Maps, especially if you're going to want to walk certain sections. We found we used that and got very good at, okay, we were going. And we only have 1 car at this point, and so we used Uber a lot. Okay, so any other questions? Yes, Cindy?
Was there any portion where, as a pedestrian, you didn't really feel safe from perhaps cars
or anything?
The interesting thing is, the further you got away from New York City, the more likely people were going to stop if you were in the crosswalk. There is a crosswalk near where we live. We never cross Route 20235. It's got a poor sight distance. It's heavily traveled, high speed. We don't cross it, okay? There was none of the roadwalks did we ever feel in danger, okay? It was really, that surprised me completely. And there are a number of roadwalks. In fact, I think as a walker, you were actually better off than cycling some of them. Okay, that was a good question. Anyone else? Okay, thank you very much for having me.
We're so grateful for all of your experience and your willingness to share it. Thank you so much, Jane. With that, let's review the agenda and ask for any board member comments on the agenda for our meeting, which we're now entering the business part of the meeting. Okay, hearing none, let's go on. We have to approve minutes. That's beginning with an approval of the minutes from the December 9th meeting, which was held up at Thomas Cole. So this is for people who were there and have reviewed the minutes and can ratify them. I'll need a first and a second from any, Jane? Okay. Great, Jane, thank you. Okay. All in favor, please signal by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Terrific, thank you. And now we're going to open the Greenway Conservancy portion of the meeting. I'll call that to order. And the first thing we need to do is an action item around our financial policy or finance policy and the way that we're going to now work payment approvals. Up until very recently, we've been in the Stone Age where whenever I've had to co-sign checks, which is very frequently, they're FedExed to me from the Albany office. I sign them and I FedEx them back. Andy came in and realized this is not a very efficient system and has moved us online. And so we are in the process of doing that. And I don't know, Andy, do you want to add anything logistically to that kind of overview of the change? Or?
No, I think that was good. I think the main change here is that our physical policy requires this is the internal policy, requires 2 signatures on a check for anything over $5,001. At the advice of our new accounting firm, we'll talk about it in a minute, we're going to go to a double approval process for those to use the tools within the online bill pay service that we're using. So it's still having double reviews, just has to do with the signatures, and it's a totally internal policy.
Any questions about that? All right, thanks, Andy. And now we've got some new trail designations, and for that, let me call Beth up. Oh, you can do it from there, sure. Yeah.
Yep, so the first designation is in the city of Albany. So we've got kind of two opposite type trails. This is a South End Connector Trail. It's a 1.38-mile asphalt trail that links the Mohawk-Hudson Bike Hike Trail and the Albany County Rail Trail. That the Greenway was pleased to be able to provide a $75,000 grant for a portion of that work. And then the other designation is for the Nolan Road Riverside Trail, which is in the town of Monroe in Saratoga County. It's a 1.1-mile trail. Phase 1, it's on a former utility corridor, and this is part of Phase 1. But it will eventually connect to Monroe Lake State Park, and then eventually in the Phase 3, the feeder canal and the Empire State Trail. And the Greenway was happy to be able to provide a $25,000 grant to them for some grooming equipment so that they could expand use in the wintertime for snowshoeing and snowmobiling. So those are the 2 designations that we're presenting today.
Great work. Thank you, Beth. Any questions about that? Do we need to take a motion or approve any of these?
So, yes, but I think we had discussed earlier, but you can, it's your call now, and you could do like an omnibus.
Yeah, let's do it that way.
At the end after the.
Yeah, that keeps it simpler. One beautiful, big, beautiful motion. That sounds great. All right, and with that, we get to the portion of the meeting where we can actually award money, which is great. I think all of us on the Grants Committee were really inspired by the latest round. We saw a huge increase in applications, which is very encouraging. So I'm excited to have Andy share all that with you now. So let me transition to Andy.
Thank you, Kevin, and thank you to staff as well. One of the things that we did, one of the changes that we've made for this calendar year is, in the past, we had 4 rounds for each of our grant categories, basically on a quarterly rate throughout the year. We have moved to 2 rounds a year for each of our categories and 1 for our heritage development grants, which I'll talk about in a few minutes. There's a whole variety of reasons for doing that I'm happy to discuss, but we're kind of testing the waters to see how that works, and I think so far it's worked pretty well. We did have, as Kevin noted, we had more than $1 million in applications this year, in this particular round for our trail grants, which is what we're awarding today. Council grants will be awarded in June. They actually open up on Monday, and I'm stealing Dan's thunder. So I'm going to work through our recommended awards, and we'll go from there. So is there anyone from the city of Albany today? I don't believe so. We awarded $250,000 to the city of Albany for the Tivoli Preserve Trail enhancement. Hudson Taconic Lands Incorporated in Rensselaer County. They are building a bridge to connect an urban trail in the city of Troy. That's a $140,000 award. Village of Highland Falls in Orange County. Highland Falls Preserve Trail Development Project, $64,890. I know there's somebody from Hopewell Depot Museum here because I had your bacon, which was delicious. Thank you. So Hopewell Depot Museum, Dutchess County, a drinking fountain and bottle fill station, $39,388. Would you like to stand up and say a couple words? Congratulations. Thank you. Bannerman's Castle Trust. Thank you. Dutchess County, Bannerman Island Historic Trail Improvement and Accessibility, $20,000.
Hello. Hi, my name is Kelly Ellenwood. I am the Director of Development from the Bannerman Castle Trust. Neil Kaplan, the Executive Director, says hello and thank you so much. He reminded me and he wanted to say our first grant was given to us from the Greenway Trail. And so we're so grateful to be back and doing these enhancements to we don't have too many miles of trail, but they're difficult to ascend and descend, and this grant will allow us to put some wrought iron railings in to help people with some mobility issues navigate those trails, and we are incredibly grateful. Thank you.
Thank you. I know that someone from Cornell Cooperative Extension was not able to join us today, but they did want to share their thanks to us and just recognize the value of these grants in making community projects available. So Cornell Community Cooperative Extensions from Putnam County, the Fred Dill Wildlife Sanctuary Trail Planning and Assessment, $21,800. Congratulations to Cornell Cooperative Extension. Open Space Institute Land Trust. Anybody from Open Space? Okay. This is for the Lake Awasting Carriage Road reconstruction, $250,000. I want to just call out this one in particular. This is a trail rehabilitation project. It's a beautiful space. It's a remote space. And they are reconditioning a trail that's no longer accessible and usable. So congratulations to them and anybody thinking about reconditioning a trail. We've got money. New York, New Jersey Trail Conference in Westchester County. Anthony's Nose Trail Rehabilitation, $6,455. And the Fort Montgomery Battle Site Association in Orange County, Reconnecting the twin forts of the Hudson, $30,705. That's a trail connection project. So that's $823,238 that we are awarding. Those are matching grants. They require a one-to-one match. And I want to just congratulate Beth, Cody, and Dan for their work on these. Dan, I'll congratulate in another minute too, but I'm up here sharing this. They do the work. I didn't do any of this. So they did all of this. They spend a lot of time connecting with our partners to make these trail grants, so thank you. So then, Kevin, I think it's up to you for our omnibus.
Very happy to do that. This is one motion for approval. This is the finance policy update, the trail designations, and the Conservancy trail grants that Annie just reviewed. So this is for Conservancy board members.
I'll make that motion.
Okay, Cindy, thank you. Okay, duly noted. Okay. So we have a first and a second. All those in favor, please signal by saying aye. This is for the Conservancy. Aye. Any opposed? Terrific, thank you. We still have a few items on our agenda which will bring us back to Andy to talk about the strategic planning effort for an update.
Just briefly, we have hired one-to-one advisory planning services. Their proposal is in your packet. We had 33 applications for strategic planning, so it wasn't easy. Beth and Andy Beers and I are serving as the staff leads on this, and all of our staff are involved in the process. We held a kickoff meeting with them on Monday, 9 o'clock in the morning on Monday. We held a kickoff meeting for strategic planning, so I'm very excited about the process. We will be building a strategic planning committee, so I may be reaching out to some of you if you're interested in strategic planning. If you want to be a part of it, please reach out to me and I'll discuss it with you and we'll go from there. So more to come on that. We will hold, the June meeting is going to have a strategic planning focus, so please do, if you're able to join us in person at the June meeting, that would be great. So we'll be introducing Carrie from One-to-One and her team, and we'll be going from there. Any questions about strategic planning at this point? That's a very high, very fast overview. All right. Yes, please.
Thank you. Forgive me, this is Jennifer Carlquist again. If I may, there's a resource that the Greenway used to produce that I still look at, and at this point it's 20 years old. But it is essentially a cultural corridor study of visitation, of revenue patterns, of trends, and no other entity is updating that research. And sites like Boscobel up and down the Hudson really need that, especially post-COVID. What is the state of that tourism and learning economy? And there are patchwork studies from various counties, but the river links us all. And I have to say, it doesn't seem to have a home in any other state entity. It's not just tourism, it's not just education. And the Greenway wonderfully acknowledges that we have cultural fabric and environmental fabric that work in tandem. So if there's a way at all to add that to your very lengthy to-do list, it's something that we all really need, and none of us independently could do it.
Well, yeah, it's interesting. Yeah, it's a great suggestion, absolutely. I think, one of the main, I think the number one bullet for our planners in our RFP was raising the visibility and the footprint of the Greenway. And one of the great ways to do that is to start doing studies like that, to reach out to our partners, to start to gather that technical data. And that definitely is good. It's the first I've heard of that, so I'm going to follow up with you.
I'll send you the 20-year-old one if you like. It was really well done.
I would love to see it. Thank you. Thank you, Jennifer. Any other questions?
Can I just add that you might want to touch base with Patterns for Progress too, because they do that type of research work, and even if they aren't already doing it, maybe we can collaborate with them.
Patterns for Progress?
Yes.
Thank you. Pattern for Progress. Great. Thank you. Beth?
They're on our...
Yep. Yeah, so we've populated a list of 60 people to be interviewed, board members, staff members, partners, groups, et cetera. And so we went through that on Monday. Very extensive draft list at this point. Other questions about strategic planning? I'm excited about it. I think it's going to be a good process, and I look forward to working with all of you on it. So I think Cody is up. Yes, so Cody, I think Cody was unable to join us in person today, but Cody is on our Zoom. So Cody, if you are listening, it's time for you to give a quick okay. We still can't hear him. Okay, so is this, let me just make sure this is not.
Did you guys hook that into this? Should it be plugged into this one? So it's this one? Okay, Cody, try again.
Testing, can anybody hear me at the meeting there?
Thank you, Cody.
We're good? All right. Give me 1 second here. All right, welcome everybody. My name is Cody Arana. I'm an employee of the Hudson River Valley Greenway. I apologize for attending by Zoom today, but I'm just getting over something. So I'm going to give you a brief update on the Albany-Hudson Electric Trail Columbia County paving project that Andy Kitzman, Andy Beers, and I have been undertaking. And I'm going to give you a little background for anybody who's unfamiliar with AHET. So the Hudson River Valley Greenway manages and operates the 36-mile Albany-Hudson Electric Trail, which is a segment of the 750-mile Empire State Trail connecting the city of Albany to the city of Hudson. When we completed the construction of the Albany-Hudson Electric Trail in 2020, 75% of the trail was paved, and 9.5 miles we installed stone dust, primarily due to budget constraints. The entire trail we paved asphalt, but alternating portions in Columbia County are asphalt and stone dust, but primarily stone dust. Since construction was complete in 2020, we've had widespread issues, about 25 locations to be exact, of stormwater runoff that has eroded stone dust sections of the trail, creating safety issues for trail users and discharging stone dust material off the trail surface. Where in contrast, in the paved sections of the trail, they held up and they weren't affected by any means when we had these storm events. As a solution, as many of you might already know, the Hudson River Valley Greenway was awarded support through the New York State Environmental Bond Act in the form of $4 million to pave the remaining 9.5 miles of AHET. So here's the most latest update. In January, with the help of our engineers, GPI, Greenman and Peterson Incorporated, who drew up the design and the engineering, we put out a bid for the paving project, which received a good amount of interest. This past February, we awarded the bid to our lowest bidder, A. Colarusso and Sons Incorporated. They are the same construction firm that constructed the Columbia County portion of AHET when we completed it in 2020. Colarusso and Sons did a great job during the original construction, so we are confident that they will be able to efficiently execute this project as well. So the next steps are to begin construction. We plan to start that in mid-April, but that's going to depend how wet the weather is. And construction will be complete by August, which will result in the entire length, the 36 miles of AHET being paved, improved drainage solutions, and safer experience for trail users. So those are some brief updates. I could take questions as long as people speak very clearly through the mic.
As someone who walked the stone dust area, I'm glad to hear you're going to pave the rest of it. I think it's a great thing that you're doing.
little hard to make that out, but I think it was a compliment on us executing this project.
It was definitely a compliment. Thank you, Cody.
Thank you.
Take care. And I think our last item on the Conservancy agenda is Beth is going to talk to us about some trails.
Not sure how to get, oh, there, ooh, it went away. Actually, it went back one. There we go. Okay, hi, everybody. I'm Beth Campochiaro. We wanted to give a brief, just kind of primer on the trail program and the grant program, just for folks who might be unfamiliar and to spread the word about it. So the Greenway Trail is based on the Greenway Act, which called for a trail on either side of the Hudson with physical or visual access to the Hudson River. Oh, I didn't know it was going to do all these things. But the trail system at this time includes more than 300 miles of land trail, the Hudson Valley portion of the Empire State Trail that we just talked about, the Hudson River Greenway Water Trail, which is 256 miles and 116 sites for launching, landing, and some campsites for small boats, kayaks, and canoe access. And State Bike Route 9, that was designated as part of the Greenway Trail back when the Greenway was created. As we had today, we had 2 trail designations. Trails are designated as part of the Greenway Trail system by the board, but the ownership and the management is still maintained locally. You know, as Jane Daniels had mentioned earlier, even along the EST, they still retain their own name because it's very important to the local people that put in all of that effort to establishing those trails. And the trail grants are our main way that we can further the trail program, the list of grants that Andy had gone through earlier. And as Andy mentioned, all of our grant funding is one-to-one. So it requires a 50% match, but that doesn't have to be cash. It can be in-kind services. It can be donated materials. We really encourage people to be creative with their match and think about the time and the materials that they are putting into this project, and all of that counts towards your match. The only caveat is they cannot be matched with other state funds because our funding comes from the EPF, so we can't match with other state because that's matching state with state. The in-kind can be your staff time if there's staff at the town or if there's staff at your organization, at your county. We have a very generous volunteer rate. It's calculated by independentsector.org by state, and for New York State right now, the value of volunteer time is around $37 and change. So you can really, if you have a committee working on a trail grant project, all those people's time can be valued at that amount. So it pays to keep track of that volunteer time. And then again, donated materials or services. You can't count grant writing costs or fixed operations like salaries, but you can still use those as match. And they are reimbursement grants, so as all of our grants are. So the funds have to be expended and then you file to us for reimbursement. So we have 4 categories currently of trail grant projects. A construction project, so constructing a trail segment or a water trail site. We definitely allow the most amount of funds for this category, but it's still probably what we have available is not going to get you much built trail. But as you saw, we have a grant for a bridge, so things like that, even though it might not get the whole trail done, it will allow you to provide some linkages design, because that's a really important part of a trail project, is getting the engineering right, getting a feasibility study, and then you can maybe move on to a larger pot of funds to get the construction costs. Rehabilitation improvement, so this kind of encompasses everything that would be, okay, we have a degraded section, or we want to add some amenities, we want to make an improvement to make it more user-friendly, and then disaster recovery and reconstruction, because with climate change and with other types of extreme weather events, some sections of trails are being degraded to a point where you're basically starting from scratch. So we allow that as a project category as well. You must be within the Greenway area, but you do not have to be a Greenway community, unlike the council grant programs. And all previously awarded funds must be completed before applying for new funding within that grant category. And as you saw today, we had 2 designations that we had provided grants for. So a trail grant or a water trail grant project that we award will then be required to request designation as part of the Greenway Trail system or the Greenway Water Trail. We need signed resolutions. The current funding ranges are $250,000 for, up to $250,000 for trail construction, $75,000 for design or planning, rehabilitation or improvement $100,000, and recovery and reconstruction up to $250,000, because it really is basically a construction grant at that point, because you're starting from almost ground zero. An example of a recently completed grant is the Grassland Birding Loop Trail. Our photographer here is Andy Kitzman, so he's multi-talented. It was a $68,000 grant for the Alfred Z. Solomon viewing area in Fort Edward. This is an Audubon designated important bird area, and they were able to establish a 2.5-mile loop trail with a boardwalk, ADA viewing platforms and picnic area. And another aspect of this site is it's part of the New York State Birding Trail, which brings more folks to it that are not only interested in trails, but also interested in birding. So one last point that I want to make is that the Greenway staff, Dan and I, and anybody else who's there, we are always available for consultation about an application prior to submission. So I really encourage anybody that's interested in putting in a grant application to contact us and kind of work through the process, and we can guide you to make your application the most successful that it can be. So reach out to us, and we'll see how we can help. And if anybody has any questions, Michael?